Hello, everybody, and welcome to Super Good Advice, episode number 3, Destiny Podcast. My name is Hudson, or Duke of Harlem on Twitch and YouTube. Figured you'd get to know me as my online alias before we start today's show. It is just me this week. Tristan and Trey have bowed out. They are busy, and this episode needs to get done, so in true Thanos fashion, I will do it myself. This week we're going to be talking about the week at Bungie that was posted on July 25th. It was last Thursday. This week's episode is going to be a little bit late. We're going to go over some Solstice of Heroes news and updates before that launches tomorrow. We're also going to go over a couple of small tidbit things here in the TWAB with the new update 2.5.2. Going over some Lord of Wolves changes, some Iron Banner changes, and some other things going on in the Destiny universe. And then we're going to wrap things up with me just talking into the mic by myself with no feedback on Pinnacle weapons in Destiny 2 and what they mean for the sandbox, how they're acquired, and ways that they could improve the acquisition of Pinnacle weapons, and maybe some changes as well as far as what they can do in the sandbox and some of the underpowered ones and some of maybe slightly overpowered ones. We'll get into that a little bit later, but before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit about the TWAB. I want to get through this rather quickly just because most people already know a whole lot about the Solstice of Heroes. We talked about it last week on the show pretty extensively. The only thing that has changed last week compared to this week is that they did announce that the full Majestic Legendary set of the Solstice of Heroes armor will be Armor 2.0 compatible coming this fall. You will be able to pick that armor set up after Shadowkeep launches, and it will be Armor 2.0. They also mentioned that the glows will persist after Solstice of Heroes has launched, so there is a lot of incentive to grind this event, get the fantastic-looking armor sets, and then purchase those glows for Bright Duster Silver and Eververse and be able to rock some sexy-ass armor come time for Shadowkeep and be able to stand out among the crowd, especially with a lot of the new light players joining in on the Destiny universe. So this should be fantastic. I know personally I'm going to be going for this set on my Titan. I'm probably not going to grind it out on my other characters. Just I've got a lot of other things on my plate and I want to get some other things done in Destiny as well, and not really concerned with running 3 characters. I do run all 3. The main is the Titan, and I will get the set there. And it should be fun. The new European aerial zone looks good. Really excited about that. It should be a really fun event and something a little bit more unique and different than the past. Even though it has similar aspects to maybe like the Revelry Infinite Forest type feel, at least this is a new area. And it looks like a lot of fun, so I'm really excited about this. Let me know what you guys think on comments and anything like that on YouTube. Reach out to us on Twitter. Hit us up on the email box and hit us up with any questions, concerns, comments you have about this event. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I'd love to talk with you guys about it as well and really get a feel for how everybody else feels about this. It's going to run until the end of August, as most know, but you'll have a whole month pretty much to grind out those gear sets and have a lot of fun. It's very similar to last year. You have the elemental orbs and stuff like that we've talked about previously. That's really about it for Solstice. I am excited. We'll probably talk even a little bit more about this next week. Hopefully we can actually get Tristan and Trey and maybe another guest on the show and really discuss the grind and what we're going for and what we hope to get out of the event. But next week in Destiny also, actually really tomorrow, as this podcast is uploaded late, we will get Destiny Update 2.5.2. This is the patch that is mainly focused on bringing the Lord of Wolves into a little bit more of a neutral state, specifically on PC. It's really has not been a problem on console, but they are going to essentially reduce the amount of ammo that shotgun scavenger perks can give to the Lord of Wolves when it's in the Release the Wolves state. They're also going to increase the effective range on Lord of Wolves, and then it's also going to be even more aggressive decrease in range when it's in Release the Wolves. So they're kind of just neutering the Release the Wolves state of the weapon, and they're going to reduce the amount of ammo that you can get while you pick up ammo in that state. To be honest, I'm not sure how I feel about this change. I know Lord of Wolves definitely needs some tuning. I'm not sure if this is really going to do it in regards to, the gun on PC. On console, it's really not an issue anyways. I think that specifically the one change, reducing the ammo of shotgun scavenger perks to Lord of Wolves when in Release the Wolf state doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because you can just put it in its normal state, grab the ammo, and then reload it really quick and throw it back into Release the Wolves, and you'll have that bonus ammo. So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And then, decreasing the effective range is great. I think that's a good thing on PC. It's a laser, and it's got crazy range for a shotgun. Combo that with the ridiculous amount of ammo you can get. It is pretty nasty. So I think it'll bring it in, but I think that it depends on how hard they hit this, I guess, is what I'm getting at. I think that if they decrease the range like crazy and they just neuter the gun and make it completely useless, then great. Like, they did their job. It's not going to be used in Comp or Iron Banner anymore. But then now they've also completely destroyed the gun, and nobody's ever going to use it. So it's kind of like this balancing act of, like, great, they completely destroyed the gun, and nobody's going to ever use it, or, like, they didn't do enough, and it's essentially going to be in the same state. Bungie has a really good track record of completely destroying weapons like this, so it wouldn't surprise me one bit if this patch goes live tomorrow and it is just god-awful and nobody uses it ever again, which, whatever, it's unfortunate. It is what it is. Nothing I can do about it. It's sad, but oh well. The patch also includes some changes to the Tribute Hall, Iron Banner quest, and the general fixes to some things here in the Crucible, and then also a little bit of a quality of life improvement in the Menagerie/Chalice of Opulence for this season. So, running through it quickly, in the Tribute Hall, they are going to no longer require a full set of Leviathan gear to progress for the Emperor's Gladiator and Scoundrel and Uniform triumphs, which is a nice bonus for that. And then players will earn more points based on the number of gear pieces worn, which is similar to the other triumphs. So this makes it in line with the other triumphs, so there's less confusion. I think this is a really good change. I don't know why it wasn't like this in the first place. So anyways, for Iron Banner, they are going to decrease a lot of the values for the Iron Banner quest this season to get the seasonal armor. They're going to reduce the grenade kills by 50%, and ally grenade kills will be worth as much as your own, so that step should go a lot faster and be more in line with the super kills and ability kills, which is a good thing. It was definitely needed. You would finish the super kills in like 5 games, and then it would take like 30 games, 20 games to get the grenade kills. So this is another change that is good, but again, doesn't really make any sense why it wasn't like that in the first place. Anyways, last change for the Iron Banner quest is they're going to reduce the sword kills by 25%, and ally sword kills will also be worth as much as your own. Another good change. Again, like, the last thing that I want to do is fucking run around in the Crucible with a sword like an idiot. I just want to go in with my loadout and stomp people, so I'm not a big fan of the quest and how they set it up. I really like using the quests in the past that have like point modifiers, like essentially like, you get this many kills with any loadout and you just need to get this many points and that'll give you the next step, or something along the lines of like a win gives this much points and a loss gives this much points. I like that a lot more than something like go in Iron Banner and use a sword, and you're essentially just hindering your team, making it harder for you guys to win, and I don't like this quest design, so I'm glad that they are changing the amount of kills needed. However, I think that they should really rework this. Let me know what you guys think as well, but I think that's a common complaint in the community, from, YouTube to Twitch to Reddit to whatever, Twitter, that, some of these quests that I'm going to talk about here later too with Pinnacle weapons just really are just so out of line with other quests in the game that it makes it so confusing when you're like, oh, sweet, I now have to run a sword in Crucible and in a competitive Crucible playlist as well, and try to get kills just so I can get some more armor. And then you're not focusing on objectives. You're trying to camp for heavy. You're hindering your team by using a really shitty weapon type, to be honest, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So without digging into that rabbit hole, I'm just going to leave it there because it's frustrating, but it's whatever. For the Menagerie/Chalice in this next update, they are also going to make the Heroic Menagerie drop the sword for the first time completion. So this is a 100% flat chance. You go in on your Titan, first try, Heroic Menagerie, you're going to get the sword. Great. I love this change. This is how it should have been the whole time, and I love it. Great. Subsequent completions will have a moderate chance to drop the sword as well, 25%. So I think this is really good changes. It helps fill out the collections for people chasing the Shadow title. Less RNG for titles is a good thing. This is a great change. Again, another thing that I'm like, why wasn't this in the game at the start? I don't know. I think I love Bungie, great developer. I love Destiny, it's a fantastic game, but some of the decisions that they end up patching in later, I'm like, why wasn't it like that in the first place? I think that's a common headache for us in the community, but regardless, they're making the change, they're listening, it's a step in the right direction, and so I applaud them for that. And then just a couple general fixes here. This isn't the full patch note list, but these are the highlights. Fixing an issue where completion notifications did not appear after completing bounties. So there was this issue that I'm assuming everybody has been experiencing. I have as well. You would go into Menagerie, for instance, or Crucible to get one of the Tribute Hall discount bounties done, and it was, get 2 headshots in Crucible without dying. Boom, boom, you get the 2 headshots right at the start of the map, and it would never come up in the UI on screen like you've completed the bounty. You actually had to tab into your pursuits, and then it would show as completed. Really strange, bizarre bug that happened with the last update hotfix, but they're fixing that, as well with the issue where people would be invisible in the Crucible and or would not spawn during a Crucible match, where you'd have to do the same thing. You would actually have to tab into your Pursuits tab and then exit out, and then you would then spawn into the match. Super weird things that were just breaking the game. I mean, it wasn't awful, it wasn't something like the laser tag weekend, who are just full-blown breaking the Crucible or anything like that, but just really weird bugs that to me doesn't make any sense. But game development is ridiculously insane. It's convoluted, it's complex, it's hard, it's difficult. So I get that shit happens. Just really interesting issues that come up, they're like, oh, we're gonna fix, this issue here, and then it completely breaks something on the other side of the game. Super interesting. But those are the issues that are going to be fixed. It's going to be the usual downtime for Destiny tomorrow, July 30th, 9 a.m. PDT. They will take down the servers for maintenance. They will go back up at 11, which will then ensue the weekly reset, and Solstice of Heroes will begin as well. So this is all relatively standard stuff. That's pretty much it for the TWAB. They call out 2 known issues, which were the invisibility, as I mentioned before. They're going to update that as well, and then also strike loading, where people would get stuck loading into strikes, and it just wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't load into the activity. You had to shut down your computer, restart your console, or just exit the game and reboot. And they're going to fix that issue as well tomorrow. So that is a good thing. As always, you can check the Seasons of Opulence known issues. The last bit of news / updates is that AMD finally released the chipset drivers for the Ryzen 3000 series chips, and Destiny 2 now works on those chips. So if you have a Ryzen 3000 chip, you can go to your motherboard's manufacturer, AMD, and get the chipset driver now. And then also, if you were thinking about upgrading to a Ryzen 3000 chip, if you were deciding on getting a new build, you can now do so as a Destiny player and not have to worry about not being able to play the game, which is fantastic. Good news. Applaud to AMD for fixing the issue, and that is about it. As far as news this week, there's not a whole lot besides that. Triple Valor still going on for the remainder of the day before reset, and that is about it. So what I wanted to talk about this week, besides news, excuse me here while I open up a drink real quick. I got these truly spiked and sparkling, they're like Perrier almost. It's like sparkling water, but with a little bit of flavor, and they're 5%. Like little spiked sparkling water, and they're super good. So I'm going to open up one right now. So excuse my absurd cracking noises there as I take a sip of this fantastic drink. That is not a plug, they're just really good. So the thing that I want to discuss here, since I'm by myself this week, and I think that this is something that can really spark a lot of discussion. I know that me and the other guys on the podcast, Tristan and Trey, we'll probably follow this up a little bit next week and maybe hit on the topic, or maybe do kind of a side episode here in a couple days before next week's episode, where we want to talk about Pinnacle weapons. This has been a hot topic of discussion in Destiny for quite some time. We've had these god-tier Pinnacle weapons. Recluse is a beast. Mountaintop is fantastic. Wendigo is upper-tier grenade launcher. And then you have just some of the worst Pinnacle weapons. Like you think of a Pinnacle weapon as being the best weapon with excluding exotics in that weapons class, right? Like that's essentially what Pinnacle means, right? Like it's the top, it's the end game, right? Of the specific weapon type you're going for. So the ones that come to mind are these shit tier, Oxygen, SR3, Scouts are already in a bad place, and this is just so underwhelming. Hush is just so bad, especially for console users who can't really get that snap, non-ADS hipfire headshot. It's just some of these, there's such a disparity between these incredible Pinnacle weapons and then these awful Pinnacle weapons. And, I could build out a tier list, and I could post a tier list or whatever and really break these down. But really, number one, I wanted to talk about the disparity between those Pinnacle weapons and the archetypes themselves, and how it all plays into the game and what I think it means for the game moving forward. Second, I wanted to talk about the ways of acquiring the Pinnacle weapons. Some are very easy, some are really grindy, some really allow you to play the way that you want to play and get the weapon, and some really deter you from playing the way that you want to play, and it causes some headaches in the game. And so I wanted to talk briefly about that, and then I also wanted to talk about how this affects the sandbox and what it could mean for future Pinnacle weapons, and the way Bungie might handle this going forward, and what I would like to see specifically moving forward. So first of all, talking about the Pinnacle weapons themselves, like I said, Recluse, Mountaintop, top tier weapons, like especially Recluse because of the way it's acquired, is on the easier side. I know that getting to Fabled can be a struggle, especially for a lot of people, which I'm not claiming to be some god tier PvP player, because I'm not. You really do have to go into comp and just be very, very deliberate and concise of how you're going about doing this if you're not going to, be a top tier player or get really lucky. Paul Tassi over at Forbes managed to get Recluse in like one day. He just went off and won like 12 games in a row and got it. Where some people, last season, I couldn't get past 1800 to save the life of me. I'd hop in to get my 3 games, and I'd lose all 3 of them, and then I'd get the bonus glory, and it would put me right back to where I was the week before, and I could never get above 1800 this year, or this year. This year I fucking got it. This season, I finally managed to get over 2100 and collect, my Pinnacle rewards that I had waiting for me at that level, which is fantastic. And it's made me realize and made me want to spark the discussion on this, as many other podcasts and YouTubers and Redditors and everywhere in the Destiny community have said. You have these amazing god tier Pinnacle weapons, which I think is fine. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think having a season-long grind for a weapon that's really fantastic and that can really be a Pinnacle in your loadout, not just a Pinnacle weapon as a whole, but a Pinnacle, a staple in your loadout, I think is great. I think they've done a really good job with Pinnacle weapons as far as implementing them into the game, because I think it's in a much better spot than it was previously when we didn't have Pinnacle weapons. It kind of reminds me of when Destiny 1 had the super long drought in between, Taken King and Rise of Iron, where there was nothing to chase. The seasons weren't really a concept yet, and there was just nothing to do. And so with each season, you have these sets of Pinnacle weapons, which I think really can breathe some life into old activities, which is a good thing, and then can also inject some fun and some grind into the game when you might not be working towards something, or you have nothing specific that you're trying to do. Like this whole season, after I upgraded my Chalice and got the rewards I wanted from the Menagerie, it was just about hunting down the last Pinnacles that I needed or wanted, and that was it. I literally finished it yesterday. I got Redrix yesterday, and now I'm perfect. I've done everything I wanted this season to do, and Solstice starts tomorrow. This is fantastic. There's something to do every week. I think that's great. It keeps me playing. It's a lot of fun if you enjoy that type of grind, if you like to do that kind of stuff, which is awesome. I just think that Bungie needs to figure out a way to bring in Pinnacle weapons that are overpowered necessarily, because I think then that takes exotics out of the play, and then it limits your loadout to you need to have Mountaintop and Recluse for this raid or you suck and we don't want you in our group, which I think is stupid because there's so many other options you can run. So I don't necessarily think that that's fair. However, I think that Pinnacle weapons still need to remain Pinnacle. Some really good examples of this, in my opinion, that aren't crazy overpowered are Wendigo. It's a great example of a Pinnacle weapon and what a Pinnacle weapon should be, especially for grenade launchers. You can pick up the orbs, then you have this great damage bonus. It does great DPS, but you need to do something to keep that damage bonus up, which I think is a really good way to diversify it and give it something that other grenade launchers don't have, while also keeping it in the realm of just not being incredibly overpowered. Now, when I talk about Recluse, I think Recluse is a great weapon. I really don't think that it needs to be nerfed, because Bungie, like I said at the start of the episode, has a really long track record of taking something and just nerfing the shit out of it and making it completely unusable. And I have a feeling that a nerf to Recluse is probably going to end up coming into the game, as much as I don't want it to, because I love powerful weapons and I think they feel good. However, I think that it might need a slight damage decrease. I think it's fine where it is, as far as getting a kill, activating the perk, and then just letting it rip. I think that that's fun. I think it's interesting. I think it's really cool, and it's great. It's a great gun. I think submachine guns could be brought up a little bit to match that, like Terabah, for instance. If it had the same mechanics as Recluse, and then just had maybe something a little bit extra in there to sprinkle it in to make it more of an exotic, that'd be great, and I would love to use it. I would use it, as a matter of fact. I don't have it, but when I get it, I would use it. Right now, it's just not good. Why the hell would I use that when I could use Recluse? And it's a legendary. It's easier to activate the perk, and you can just run with it. And then Mountaintop, it kind of just got that subtle just buffs, over and over again. As grenade launchers got buffed, as spike grenades got buffed with grenade launchers, I think mistakenly, it's turned into this monster of a weapon for PvE, and that's fine. I don't mind it. I think that I think grenade launchers as a whole, or spike grenades, will probably see a nerf as well. I just don't want these weapons to get taken down to a point where they're just not usable anymore, where it's like, well, why the hell would I use Mountaintop now? It sucks. I'll just use, a primary, like, Blast Furnace, or Bygones, or Outbreak, or Bad Juju, or so many of these weapons that are so good, Ace of Spades, any of those weapons that are just so good, that it's like, well, now I'm never going to use Mountaintop ever again. There's no reason to. Like, it's not good anymore. So I think they need to find a place to bring them in just a little bit, so people don't think it's the only option. I know Destiny will always have that meta loadout. That's just the way that looter shooters work. That's the way FPSs work. That's just what happens. So there's going to be a meta loadout. There's a lot of balancing. There's a lot of fine-tuning that needs to happen. So, me personally, I don't mind power creep. I say fuck it, leave them the same. That's just me. I have a feeling that it's going to happen, though, and we need to prepare for that so people aren't so crazy upset about it. The main point of this whole thing, though, was talking about power creep and all of the new additions to the game. I wanted to talk about the Pinnacle weapons that are so bad that they need buffs, and I think that'll help these other Pinnacle weapons and exotics that are strong have a little bit more competition. Even though there's a lot out there, like Destiny is probably the most diverse in its loadouts that it's ever been. Like, Destiny Year 1 was literally just G-Horn or like Vex. Like Vex for PvP, G-Horn for PvE, and that was it. And then D2 Vanilla was like just shit. Like, the whole game was shit, and the loadouts were garbage. Like, everything just sucked, and it wasn't fun to play at all. Like, there was no power fantasy, and it was just shitty. Like, not until Warmind, the Go Fast update, did the game actually, like, start getting real loadouts into the game. And then finally, when they got rid of the stupid dual primaries, we're finally getting into this era in Destiny where, like, in the primary slot, I could go into a raid, I could use a really good hand cannon, I could use a really good pulse rifle, I could use a really good I'm drawing a blank here. I could use, honestly, a couple decent auto rifles in the game right now, even though they could use some love, but like there's a lot of loadouts there. You could use Huckleberry in a raid and be perfectly fine. And I think that that's great, that you can use an exotic submachine gun in a raid and be totally fine. You could use Outbreak is fantastic. You can use Bad Juju. You could use Thorn. It's another good weapon that, like, honestly, you could use Lumina. It's such a good gun. Lumina, however the hell you say that weapon. Like, you could use that in a raid and buff your teammates. Like, there's so many diverse loadouts in the game right now that there is so much room to make the shittier Pinnacle weapons just a tad bit better, to make it even more diverse. I love seeing that, because in D1 it was like, D1 Year 1, pulse rifles were awful. Nobody used them. They were terrible. Hand cannons were good. Fatebringer was fantastic. And that's pretty much, if you had that, that's what you were going to use until they buffed pulses. And then people started using pulses. And auto rifles were good too for a while there, but it was pretty much like Fatebringer and like the G-Horn in the heavy slot, and then secondary, whatever sniper or shotgun you liked. And that's excuse me. This is why I love Pinnacle weapons, because they add so much to the game as far as loadout wise, because even though Recluse might be king, if you don't have Recluse, fucking put on Loaded Question. It demolishes. Like, it's fantastic. Like, there's no need to go in with a certain loadout and not be able to complete something. Like, you could go into a raid and use a scout rifle, a sniper, and a rocket launcher, and honestly, you'd be fine with 6 people. Like, there's no need for this min-maxing. Like, the only time you need to min-max is when you're, like, trying to 2-man Galran, or 2-man Riven, or solo Riven, or 3-man Scourge, or whatever. Like, any of those things, yeah, you need to min-max. You're going to use Mountaintop, Swarm of the Raven, Tractor Cannon, and all the buffs and things that you need to maximize that damage, which is fine. There's always going to be that in Destiny, but I love the diversification of the loadout, and that's where these Pinnacle weapons play a really fine role. I just think that Hush could use a buff. Bows are just really weird. I know that people are really good with bows. They can be really good. Hush can be good, but it's really bad on console, which is a problem. and it could use just a little bit of a buff. I'm not sure what to do. If you guys have suggestions, feel free to hit me up, and I'd love to talk about that on the next episode. If you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. I think definitely bows need that buff, and Hush could use a buff as well. And then Oxygen Scout Rifles really, really need a buff in total. I think the only archetype that's good is the 150s. I could be wrong, but I believe it's the 150s. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Those ones are good, but any other Scout Rifles, they really need a buff, and the Oxygen just needs Firefly, not Dragonfly. It needs OG Destiny Firefly, and then it would kick some serious ass with just a nice, good buff to Scout Rifles. It would be one of the better weapons in the game. That's all it needs, and it would be competing with, Recluse. If you get, a swarm of Thrall or Dregs or whatever, you pop that one headshot and it gets the insta-kill, and you have this just disgusting explosion that kills everything in a 10-meter radius. It's done its job as a Pinnacle weapon. Revoker I got last week. I'm not a big sniper. Not my favorite thing in the world to use in the sandbox. I think snipers could use a little bit of a damage buff as well in PvE, even though Revoker is really not a PvE weapon focus, really. Like, it can be. I think it's good for somebody who doesn't have that perfect aim, which in reality, nobody does. So I think it's good. Do I think it's good enough to be a Pinnacle weapon considering the other ones that we have? I think it could maybe refund 2 shots. I know that there's a lot of sandbox balancing that goes along with that, and they don't want people constantly popping off snipes, which is true, but heavy spam and super spam is rampant anyways, so they should have it return 2 shots, make it a little bit better in Crucible, and then just a little bit more viable in PvE, especially if the snipers get that bump that they need. I'm trying to think. Sorry for the long pause. I'll cut that out. I'm trying to think of some other weapons here. Wendigo is in a good spot, as I mentioned. I think that's probably one of the best as far as not being overpowered or underpowered. I think that's probably one of the best. Honestly, there's a lot of love and hate on Redrix. I got it, like I said yesterday. I fucking love this weapon. I think it's in a great spot. I know that a lot of people think the slow firing pulses need a little bit of a buff. I mean, I'm fine with that. I think, any buff is fantastic. I'm one of those guys that I'm they're going to buff it? Fuck yeah, I'll take that, regardless if it actually needs one or not. If they did get a buff, then it's top tier, probably one of the best primaries, if not the best primary in the game. But right now, honestly, I think it's in a fine spot. If you just pick one target that has a little bit low of a health pool, Dreg, Thrall, Legionary, War Dogs or whatever, you pop that, get Outlaw, reload, and it is a monster when you have Desperado active. In PvE, I think it's great. I have a God Rolled Blast Furnace, range masterwork, max range, feeding frenzy rampage with the rampage spec on it, and I love that weapon. I have 25,000 kills with it in PvE, but I've been using Redrix the past couple days, and I'm man, even though I like the feel of my blast furnace with those first hits, just because it is so dirty and the 4-burst is just badass, I can't get over the satisfaction of reloading with Outlaw on Redrix and just slaying with Desperado active. It is fantastic. It shreds majors. It's so good. I think it's in a great spot. If they decide to buff the slow firing pulses, whatever that fire rate is, 340, 350, whatever it is, fine. But I think that's in a great spot. Leave that the way it is. Love it. 21% Delirium. I think this is in another good spot for a Pinnacle weapon. It's great. You need to get 3 kills quickly, and it'll get that killing tally up to ×3, and then as long as you have the weapon out, it holds the buff, and then you can shred down majors or bosses with it. I think this is a great weapon. This LMG in particular is in a good spot. It doesn't have too much range for PvP. It has a little bit of kick. I'm not sure how it is on console, but even for mouse and keyboard, it's got a little bit of kick. You need to control it, but it does good damage. I think this is also in a really good spot. That's fantastic. Breakneck as well, I think, is also in a good spot. I think autos in D2, as I mentioned, there's a couple that are good, but I think those could use a small buff, just like scout rifles. And then this is also in another place where it's like could be a top tier weapon as well. You get the Pinnacle perk active. Now I'm trying to think what it is. It's just Rampage. Then it increases the fire rate. It reminds me of Redrix as well, just even easier to activate. This thing's a monster, and it rips, and I think it's also in a really good spot. If it just got a slight bump to get that first stack of Rampage just a little bit quicker, you're rolling with that weapon, and I think it's fantastic. It's another great weapon. No issues at all. Keep that where it is. Let's see. Let's run down some more Pinnacle weapons here in my head really quick before I go on another tangent. We covered Mountaintop. We covered Recluse. Oh, Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten. These ones are interesting. So Not Forgotten, I really don't... I'm never going to reach Legend Glory rank. And I don't really have a desire to get it anyways, so this might be where we need a little bit of Trey's input, because he's the hand cannon guy out of the three of us, and I'm kind of more of the pulse guy and the auto guy, and I don't mind scouts as well. He loves hand cannons, so he'll probably have a better take on this, so reach out to us. But the nerf, I feel like, was maybe not so much needed for Not Forgotten, although I'm not sure. This could be way off, and everybody disagrees with me and hates me for it. But I think the nerf was needed for Lunas, specifically because usually weapons in Destiny, specifically Pinnacles, they need to get a kill first with the base weapon in order to start spinning up to really activate the full potential. I mean, this goes for Redrix, this goes for Breakneck, this goes for Delirium, this goes for Recluse, and Hush, and Wendigo, you need to get kills to get the orbs, to pick everything up, to get the damage bonuses. There's this, that's kind of their underlying, trait here with Pinnacle weapons, that you need to get a kill with it in order to really unlock the full potential of the weapon, where Luna's was literally just it's just good, and it just runs. That's all you don't need to get a kill with it. You just hit and it goes. So I think they did a good job here. However, the PvE aspect of it is disappointing. I really wish that they could fine-tune that to bring it back in PvE to make it very viable and fun, because I know it's pretty much dead now. Like I said, I don't have a huge opinion on it, but I think that would be smart to keep weapons viable in PvE as best you possibly can without destroying them. And also keeping them relative in the Crucible. So that's pretty much what I have to say on those two weapons. I don't think I'm missing any other Pinnacle weapons that I can think of. I think that might be all of them. The only thing else I had to mention was essentially what these quests entail as far as getting the Pinnacle weapons, and then also how that affects the game and the meta, as well as how it affects your playstyle in the respective playlists themselves. Sorry, I had a big brain fart and was trying to see where I wanted to go with this. The only thing that I have left to mention is Loaded Question. Great weapon. Nothing needed or to say about that. It's fantastic. Leave it where it is. After it got the latest buff to fusions, it's in a great spot. And it's the best fusion in the game, as it should be. It's the Pinnacle, but you could also use other fusions as well. So I think this is in a really good spot, and that's another great weapon. Nothing else needs to be said about that. So the only thing else here to add with the Pinnacle weapon discussion, and I'd love to get even more input on this, and this is really where I wanted to hit home the most, because disregarding balance, disregarding how good the Pinnacle weapons are, disregarding how shitty some of them are, the main thing that I wanted to touch on with my discussion and my frustration about Pinnacle weapons is simply the means to acquire them. And what I'm talking about here is the quests, and in particularly the steps that you need to take to get there. Most importantly, with the ones that require the specific use of a loadout or anything revolving kills with a weapon, a specific weapon, and not just points. This kind of ties back to the discussion that I had at the start of the episode with Iron Banner. And so I think a really well-designed quest here is Redrix. And I know people are going to be like, whoa, that was way too much. I actually really think that this is the perfect way to do a Pinnacle weapon quest. Yes, it's a lot of time. Yes, it requires a lot of grinding, a lot of kills, a lot of whatever. And that's the way a Pinnacle weapon should be. If you're going out and you know, if I do X, Y, and Z, I am going to get this payoff of a fantastic weapon, best in its class, one of the best weapons in the game. And I think Redrix does this perfectly. However, there could be a little bit of fine-tuning because I know that people would be upset if they did a quest like Redrix and then you also had, 3 other Pinnacle weapons to chase that season or 2 other Pinnacle weapons to chase that season. I think, obviously, if there was only one Pinnacle weapon for a season, I think the Redrix quest is perfect because it requires pretty much steady play, calculated play throughout the entire season, and then boom, you get your payoff. I think this is a really good way to design a quest. I think this is my favorite way to do it, and specifically, the only thing I would change about this quest is, obviously, I know they want you to get used to the weapon type that you're going to be acquiring, so like pulse rifle kills, Redrix pulse rifle, you need to get the 200 pulse rifle kills and the 150 headshots. I believe that's the specific amount needed. However, I don't mind this. I think that's good for Crucible. The only thing that deters me from it is competitive, and that's why I really, really like Redrix, because it's a quick play Pinnacle weapon. Because in competitive, I don't want to see a Pinnacle weapon quest tied to competitive where you need to get, for instance, like the Iron Banner quest, like sword kills in competitive. Like, that is not okay. First of all, number one, it takes away from your team. If you're using a really bad weapon type, or if you're constantly trying to play around getting kills with a specific weapon, it hinders the game because you're not playing up to your ability, and that detracts from your team, and it detracts from the match itself, and it causes you to lose games. It really, truly does. Like, anytime I focused on revoker kills in comp to get sniper kills, I'm not a good sniper, I don't like sniping, we would lose, and I wouldn't get enough kills. I was frustrated, and it was pissing me off, so I just didn't do it I did not do it in comp. And so I think that this is a really good way to design a quest, is Redrix. Do it all in quick play, because then you can go into Rumble, and you're not deterring from your team, and you can try to get your pulse rifle kills. If they decide to do this with, let's say they bring in a Pinnacle Scout for Crucible, good. Go into Crucible, get your Scout kills in quick play. You're not deterring from your team. You can even go into Rumble and play by yourself and do it there. If you want to get bonus progress in competitive, sure, I guess I'll let it slide, but I really don't like it. I think it should be more of a season-long grind built into quick play. It allows you to focus on the gun you're trying to get without deterring you from your team and hindering the game itself and your teammates. So I think that's a really great way to do it in Crucible. Let me know your thoughts about that, but I really think this is the best way to do it. I really love the Redrix quest. Obviously, if they're going to bring in a Vanguard Crucible and Gambit Pinnacle weapon, they could just lower maybe some of the requirements here, like an updated Redrix quest. If there was, 3 of these types of quests in the game in one season, maybe it's 100 pulse rifle kills, 100 headshots, 15 games played in each playlist, and then, 3 Valor rank resets, and that's the quest for the weapon. I think that that's a fair time sink for a really good weapon. It diversifies you. It makes you play other game modes that you might not be comfortable with, and then also get your toes wet, put your feet in the water to dip into the specific weapon that you're actually going to be using when you get the Pinnacle itself. I think that's the best way to design a quest. The quests that I hate the most are quests like Hush, for instance, or Wendigo. I think Hush is the worst culprit here because bows, number 1, suck, and 2, it requires you to get bow kills and bow headshots in Gambit. First of all, this is really hard to do because you're competing with people for kills, and people that are running meta loadouts will trash everything, and it'll take you an eternity to get these weapons or these weapon kills completed. Not to mention you're hindering your team. Sorry, I just bumped my desk there. Not to mention you're hindering your team because you're using like the shittiest weapon in the game. So I think that's the worst way to design the quest. I would have much rather seen a Hush quest along the lines of like, I like the medals. I think that's good. It pushes you to play really well. They didn't balance it at all, though. I finished the bow kills and precision hits, and I had like 40% medals. And now I'm just doing it very low-key in the background to finish off the medals. I'm at like 63%. So anyways, getting back on track, I think that I like the medals. I think that that's good. I don't mind wins. I like quests that require you to play good and play as a team to better everybody's experience. I do not like quests that involve you competing for kills or using weapons in a team environment or a competitive environment that hinder your ability to win matches. I think those are terrible ways to design quests, and they should stop doing that. So again, Redrix, the way that I described it previously, I think is a great way to do it. For Hush, I'm not sure. I don't have a great alternative because you're always going to be playing with teammates. I think maybe a small requirement on bow kills, maybe like 100, just to dip your toes in the water, get your feet wet a little bit, so you get used to using a bow again, but not something stupid like 1,000 kills. You have to play like 10, 20 games, and you're competing with people. So I think maybe 50 kills, 100 kills is good. Get it done in a match or two as like the intro to the quest. Just the very intro to the quest, instead of like a knockdown list like Hush has now, where it's just like get this, and get this, and then you're done. Have that be the intro to the quest. Get 100 bow kills, and then it's like get, this many medals, get this many invasion kills, get this many invader kills, win this many matches, and then you're done. I think that's a good way to design that quest. It extends it out a little bit longer, get your toes wet, so you know the weapon that you're going to be using, but you're not restricted to that loadout for the grind of the whole quest. It's very similar to Wendigo. The only real way to do this was go in as a fire team of 3 into a strike playlist and just go do separate lost sectors on the planet and not compete for kills. Because every game or every strike that I went to at the start of the season, everybody is using Fighting Lion. Holy shit. And just competing and stealing each other's kills. And it's like, this is supposed to be a fun, relaxing game mode. We're just here to kill aliens. It's easy and it's fun. Like, we're just killing. But it's like, now I'm competing with my teammates, trying to get kills. And then there's the people that aren't going for Wendigo, just murdering everything with like Recluse or Mountaintop or, Tractor Cannon, Swarm of the Ravens, whatever. Just murdering everything. Loaded Question, Outbreak. And it just... competing for kills with your teammates in an activity that's meant to be fun sucks too. I don't like that at all. Again, make us play the activity and dip our feet into the weapon just a little bit. Like, instead of ad kills, maybe do like 25 boss kills with grenade launchers. Or, something like that. 25 strikes completed or 20 nightfalls completed over the course of the season. Stuff like that you can grind out if you want to, but you can also make it a season-long grind in and of itself. I think this is the best way to design Pinnacle weapons. I'd really love some feedback on this, you guys. I really think that moving forward, Pinnacle weapons aren't going to go away. They're always going to have a cool theme around them. Every activity is going to get a refresh. They're going to be a great season reward to go for. And it's going to allow you to extend that play throughout the season to get something that you really want. If you don't want to go for Hush because it sucks, don't go for it. If you're a completionist and you say, fuck it, I want to get it because I want it, go for it. And it just extends that time to be able to play. And if there is a really good weapon, you go out and you chase it and you grind for it. And I think another problem, the last thing here to end the episode to discuss about is some of these Pinnacle weapon quests too are they're so unbalanced, where I think Redrix is actually a good length for a Pinnacle weapon quest. I like that. Like I said, I think they could lower the requirements just a bit to keep it on par with having to do 2 other ones if you're a completionist and not having to play, 300 hours over the course of one season to get the weapons. I think that's the best way to do the quest. A quest that I don't like is the Recluse one, because it was so easy. I think that it's okay to have 2100 be a, how do I describe this? A point in which you receive the rewards. However, I think Revoker did this a lot better. So I think, they should probably keep that requirement, actually. If you can get 3,000 instead of 3,500 glory, if you can get 3,000 glory every season, regardless of if you have wins or losses, or if you get to 5,500, or if you end the season at 200, but you manage to get those points over the course of the season, that's a much better quest design. However, I think Recluse was too easy with the fact that it was like, okay, well, I just need to go in and get wins, which is fine. I think that getting wins is good. It promotes a healthy play style, and you need to play well as a team, or play with your team properly and actually go for wins, because hindering your team is not cool, as I mentioned before. I think they could have added maybe just a little bit of something else, get 50 submachine gun kills, or 150 or 100 machine gun kill or submachine gun kills as well. Like I said, I really, really am an advocate of getting your toes wet with the gun that you're about to receive before you actually get it. Now, the absurd requirements is too much, but just a little bit. 100 kills with submachine guns. Go in with Huckleberry and Shred for a couple matches and get the hang of submachine guns again. I think would have been good. But I think the best designed quest here, and you guys, give me your feedback. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear everything you guys have. Positive, negative, agree, disagree, suggestions, comments. Let me know, please. Email us, SGA Podcast, or supergoodadvicepodcast@gmail.com, or at Twitter at SGA Podcast, or on YouTube as well, Super Good Advice. Leave us comments, questions, concerns, anything you guys have. But I really think here that the best Pinnacle weapon quest is Redrix. Lower the requirements just a bit. You have a great formula to create some really, really good quests, and healthy ones at that, to keep the player base happy and not, what the fuck, man, everybody in my Crucible match was running around with swords because they're trying to get the Pinnacle weapon, and we lost by mercy rule within 2 minutes. That's the kind of stuff I don't like to see on the forums or on Reddit, YouTube videos. It's just not fun. Let me know what you guys think. I think that's it for today's episode. We're coming up on an hour. I'm really sorry that it was just me this week. I wanted to get this episode done, so I said, fuck it, I'm going to do it myself, and that's the way that it is. I understand people are busy. I'm busy on the weekends. It's hard for me to get on and record. I really do my best, and the other guys do too. It just didn't materialize this week. We have a lot of things going on. I know Tristan has some obligations outside of the video game world, and I do as well with work and everything, so it was good to actually get on and talk, kind of to myself, but really air my thoughts out here on the mic, on the air. And really, really let me know what you guys think. I really want to know what the community at large has to say on Pinnacle weapons. I really feel like a lot of people are in the same boat as me, but I could be totally wrong. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And specifically, what your favorite Pinnacle weapon is, what your favorite Pinnacle weapon quest is, and then the complete reverse of that, what your least favorite Pinnacle weapon quest is, Mountaintop, and your least favorite Pinnacle weapon. So let me know. Thank you guys for watching and supporting us. We really, really appreciate it. Next week, we really hope to bring you a full episode with the three of us, and we can really air out some more of our personality. I know episode 2 was kind of a lot of me just reading down a list, reading some news, and really getting into the nitty-gritty of all of the stuff that had happened. So I really want to open up the podcast more, and I know that Tristan and Trey do as well. We really, really want to get our personalities out there and how we feel about the game out there as well. And then also who we are just as people and, as friends as well, and what we think about not only the game, but gaming, Bungie, and just doing this podcast as a whole. It's a whole lot of fun, and we really want to open it up. And me as kind of being the host, I really want to open it up to those guys as well to really showcase what they bring to the table. And we don't want to be that hive mind podcast where it's like all three of us are just sitting at a round table agreeing on every single thing and there's no diverse opinions. And I know Trey is really, really good at bringing up the devil's advocate of like, no. This is what I think, and that might be cool and all, but like, no. Like, he brings the different opinions to the table, and I think that that's really good, and I don't have a problem doing so as well. So I really want to open that up to those guys so we can really get some healthy debate, discussion. And then also, the name of the fucking podcast is Super Good Advice. We really are going to focus here shortly on actually bringing some tips and tricks as well into the game, not only with Destiny, but with other games and even like PC hardware shit too. Like, if we have a little bit to talk about that kind of stuff, our name is Super Good Advice, and we really want to follow up to the name. Like, we want to bring really good advice to you guys, not only in Destiny, like I said, but other things as well. And so I really, really hope to flesh this out as we just keep chugging along here, and I'm really, really excited to keep doing this. So, like I said, if you guys have any comments or concerns, please let me know. And if you have feedback, please give us any constructive criticism. We love, even if you guys hate the fucking podcast, if you hate me as a host, let me know. Like, I'd love to know what I can do better. If you want Trey to host it instead of me, I'd love to hear any and all feedback, positive, negative, what we're doing good, what we're doing bad. Please let us know. Like I said, hit us up at supergoodadvice@gmail.com for an email. You can reach out to us on Twitter, and the handle is at SGA Podcast. Feel free to DM us, tweet at us, respond to our tweets, and then also on YouTube at Super Good Advice. Feel free to subscribe, comment, leave any discussion on the channel itself. Like, dislike the video, just give us any feedback. Myself, as always, my name is Hudson, or Duke of Harlem with 2 A's on Twitch and YouTube. Feel free to hit me up as well. Give me any feedback for me personally, and I'd love to hear from you guys. So thank you very much. Again, sorry that it was just me on the podcast this week, but I hope you enjoyed it. Any and all feedback, as always, is appreciated. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will see you shortly. Have a great week, guys. Enjoy Solstice.